Hello, my name is Hope Welty, and I would like to thank you for joining us in Del Campo's High School's Coug Media Studio as we take the time to speak with candidates for the San Juan Unified School District's Board of Education. Each of our videos will start up with a 2-minute introduction by the candidate. Then I will ask the candidate a series of questions that our parents, staff, students, and community members submitted, and our student staff helped select. Each candidate is asked the same questions, so if you'd like to hear another candidate's response, you'll be able to in their video. Candidates have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question to make sure that we can get all the questions in and that all the candidates have equal opportunity to respond. Our district friend Elizabeth Zeladon will keep track of time and let us know if we approach the 2-minute mark. After questions, the candidate will have up to a 2-minute closing statement, so be sure to watch all the way through to the end. Now let me introduce to you our current board president, Dr. Mike McKibbin, who is running to represent Trustee Area 5. Hello, President McKibbin. Please begin with your opening statement.
Hi, my name is Mike McKibbin, and I've lived in Area 5 of San Juan District for 39 years. My son was educated at Casa Roble. All 13 years of his school went on to George Washington and then on to a little place called Oxford in England, based upon the education that he got in this school district. I have visited every school in this district, many of them multiple times. I spent a good part of 20 years as a parent volunteer in various classes and literally thousands of hours. I've sat on all of the committees, including curriculum instruction, and I've been a teacher at every level from preschool kids through doctoral students. I believe I've also served, public service has been my life, starting with being a Peace Corps volunteer in India, teaching people how to raise chickens, on to being a school board. And there is probably some parallels there in those two experiences. I'm glad to be here. Let's move on.
Your first question. San Juan Unified stopped providing home-to-school transportation more than a decade ago. What can be done to help make sure that students can get to and from school safely?
First, you want to talk the legislature and the governor into having that. I think home-to-school transportation is important. It was stopped in the recession of 2008 because it was a good place to take a chunk of money out. But the reality is the people who it affects the most and hurts the most are those that need to be served by transportation the most. And that is, for example, our refugees, our homeless students, or unhoused, if you will, and other students who live a good way. Generally, we try to have schools be 1.5 miles, but the reality is 1.5 miles in the rain is 1.5 miles in a long place. We need more homeschool transportation. We've tried to provide it out of some of the money that we got out of the COVID money and that sort of thing, particularly for our homeless folks. But the idea is that the two things that we probably need to pay attention to if we're really going to close achievement gaps are how many kids are coming to school hungry and how many kids are coming to school tired for various reasons, including having to walk 1.5 miles to get there.
Many families were impacted by the change to start times this school year, whether it be by lack of supervision in the morning, before school, or a time crunch after school trying to fit in activities. What supports did you see the district implement to help families adjust, and what else do you think could be done?
This is a law that was vetoed twice before it was finally passed, and that sort of thing. And I will tell you that I testified on this very bill. The reality is that that before school, parents do have jobs and that sort of thing, and frequently many of them are dropping their kids off, and then dropping their kids off when they can, which is usually earlier than 8:30. and so forth. So one of the things that we have to look at is ways in our budget to get opportunities for, if you will, study halls and things like that, so that people have a place to go to, or if they got a question on homework and that sort of thing. But the reality is that'll cost about $1 million. And so forth. But we've got to find a way to do that and essentially take this lemon and make it into lemonade. And that is because there are some pretty good studies that say that the kids get better if they have better sleep time, and if they actually use it to sleep, and that's the thing, they will be better students. And that's the thing, and that's what it's about, is about getting our kids to be as good as students and as good an opportunity as they can. After school, that indeed it does impinge upon athletics, and for many young people, athletics are indeed the hook that school is about. And it's very much like what we need and what we do, and it's very important. It was very important to me as a person and so forth. So we do have to make time for it and allow for it.
Most districts in California, including San Juan Unified, are facing declining student enrollment at those schools. Why do you think this is, and what ideas do you have to combat declining enrollment?
Well, the irony is that San Juan does have slight declining enrollment, like way more than 50% of the school districts and that sort of thing. But we're relatively lucky in that we've pretty much been able to maintain our base, and we're a few hundred down. But part of that has to do with, do we have the curriculum that is exciting, that's hands-on, that will attract people into our schools? Do we have a culture of caring in our schools? And that's the thing. And that goes from the board to the administration, to the teachers, to the students, to every playground. In other words, we have to be a civil group and say, we need you here, students. You're very important to us, and you're here because this is your opportunity for moving out and moving up. It is by far, economically, the most important thing that you can do in your life is get the kind of education that you need. So we need you here. We need to provide the best opportunities. One of the things, for example, at this school, we've used career technical education as a hook for students to say, this is what will make you more employable. This is what will make you the kind of student that people want to employ in a 21st century. So it's about getting better, making your students have the opportunities they need to grow, and we will grow when indeed, and also telling our story. I'm a little over, but I'm sorry. Okay.
What can San Juan Unified do to provide classes that have meaning to students and learning that can be used in the real world?
We're sitting in a laboratory for that sort of thing. This is a real world experience that you people are having right now, and that sort of thing. In this, also the Fire Academy is another. One of the things that we have in our middle schools is what we call makers labs, because kids are naturally curious. Kids like manipulating things and doing things with their hands and that sort of thing. We have most of our adaptations of our newer schools and that sort of thing have a hands-on experience for that. I know my son, for example, was deeply influenced by his theater program when he went to school. In fact, his senior project was getting 38 kids that had never been in a theater production to have that kind of experience and to see the kinds of expression and the kinds of opportunities that sort of thing provided. Again, I go back to, we need to challenge our students to have real world kinds of experiences. We also need to have students get ready. For example, we have what's called kinder camp now, because we have a number of kids that aren't ready for, they can't even stand in a line. They've never been taught how to do that. How you sharpen a pencil at a pencil sharpener without having it become a war. Those kinds of things, they're all different kinds of things we need to do in order to make the experience for them things that says that school is really important to me, and and it's going to help me make something out of myself.
What role does the Board of Education play in making sure that we have the highest quality teachers and staff to serve students and families?
The main job that a school board has is, for example, we only hire one person, and that's the superintendent. All the rest of the hiring and that sort of thing is done by other kinds of people. But we set the standard, we set the policy, we set the model. We set the model for civility, we set the model for excitement. And part of that has to do, one of the most important things that school board members do is show up. That we want to be there when you have events and things like that. And coming to your various homecoming events is something that I've always looked forward to at this school. The idea is that trying to have a way of saying that there are things that this school stands for. For example, our 8-point commitment to equity is real. It's real at every facet of our school, from our hiring to what we serve at lunch to how we treat each other. The reality is that as school board members, we set that model to say, that's not the way we do things here at San Juan. We treat each other civilly. We treat each other like they're our brothers and our sisters. It is a culture and a community of trying to take care of each other, trying to say, I can help you with that problem, and that sort of thing. That's what school is about, is trying to make us into the best people that we can, and it starts at the school board.
With more than $1 billion in community-supported bond funds, San Juan has been able to do a lot to improve and rebuild facilities. Do you support more bonds in the future? And how would you prioritize which schools the funds are spent at?
Well, the answer is that just as we've done with our current bonds, that we have tried to make sure that every school is impacted by that. For example, in a time when schools are threatened by external forces and that sort of thing, one of the things that we've tried to do with our bond money is what we call safety by design. The idea is that we try to be as safe as we can. We try to have single access points and things like that. But the reality is we can't build fences high enough that people couldn't climb up. So one of the things that we need to do is to not only try to have safety built in construction, but the reality is that safety is every person's experience, and so we encourage students to be part of our safety plan by the whole notion of see something, say something, because the reality is that we will make our schools as comfortable as we can and as pretty as we can and have curb appeal and all those sorts of things. So to your earlier question, if people want to come to these schools and want to be there, but the whole notion is to try to make them as green and energy safe, energy significant. You've seen the carports, you've seen the solar things. Every light bulb in San Juan District has been changed to an LED light bulb, and those are the part that came out of bond money as well as other kinds of things. We do it. We do it for safety. We do it for to try to make the best possible environment we can for our teachers and our students, and make sure that they have 21st century technologies in order to do our jobs.
What would you like to specifically see done to improve safety on school campuses?
Will you say it again? I'm sorry.
What would you like to specifically see done to improve safety on school campuses?
I've talked a little bit about that already. One is the whole idea of safety by design. The other thing is making students responsible for, if they see something that doesn't look right, tell somebody. And that's the thing. The other, because it is by far across the country, that has been the most successful way to do that kind of thing. And we want to do that here in this sort of thing. And the other part of it is about how we treat each other. if we treat each other civilly and treat each other with certain levels of kindness, that safety becomes part of who we are and the way we do things.
What is the single most impactful thing you can do as a board member to make sure that the district and its schools remain financially sound and have balanced budgets?
Well, the most important thing, we've had 10 straight budgets that have been certified and balanced and that sort of thing. And we have a fairly nice reserve right now that we're actually working on trying to make a number of people in our workforce, and 90% of our budget is on human beings and salaries and their pensions and things like that. And we have some work that we're doing that year on that sort of thing. But the reality is that the most important things that we can do is not be stupid. The reality is we need to use common sense ways of balancing our budget. For example, over this last year, we got a lot of one-time money. And we have to be very careful of spending that one-time money on people's salaries, because the money's going to go away next year. And when we do that, we have to take money away from other things. So we spend our money smartly. If we're smart about spending our money, don't spend it on our one-time money on things and persons that eat, then we can continue to balance our budget to have the kind of money that you as students need in order to do the kinds of curriculum changes and the curriculum innovations we have, because we haven't done things that other districts that are not that far from us have done and are now in the hole because of it.
Like many of the adults in our community, some students are struggling with their mental health and resiliency. What is the school district's role in supporting students' mental health, and what would you do as a board member to make sure that it happens?
Part of that goes back into what I was talking about in terms of equity. One of the things about our school district is that we have a commitment to equity, and a commitment, and all does mean all, regardless of what your various orientations are, whether you're a young lady or a young man, whether you, and particularly for those people who have challenges and their abilities are compromised in one way or another, we need to make sure that those people are taken care of. For example, one of the things we need to do at every school is have safe spaces for people to go to if they're feeling marginalized or they're having a tough day or whatever. We need a space for them, and recognize that we all have bad days. I had a pretty bad day this morning, and so forth. And so the whole notion is that sometimes you need space. Another thing we want to do is have trusted adults on every campus. There's somebody that they feel like they can go to and talk to. We think the club system is very important for building those bonds and making our school something for everyone. And we also need student advocates and student voice, because those kinds of things are the kinds of things that build leaders. And I will tell you that once you're out of high school, your leadership abilities, the things that you've done, the problems that you have solved, and that's the thing, those are the things that are going to be attractive to colleges. Those are the things that are going to be attractive to employers. That whole notion is we are who we are because we help each other and we have a culture of caring.
Do unions have too much power in California schools?
Well, the answer is maybe in some schools, but I don't believe one of those is San Juan. I believe that one of the things that we've done in this school district is have well over 100 different partnerships with faith-based organizations, with small businesses, with large businesses like Dignity and Kaiser, with service groups like I belong to, Rotary, and we help in a lot of schools. That whole notion is that it is that all of those things are partnerships. But one of our most important partners are our labor groups. I can't imagine that school would ever be better because management and the administration and the teachers or the bus drivers or that sort of thing were fighting with each other. That doesn't do one whit of good for your education. We need to have transparency. We need to talk about our problems before the fact and that sort of thing, and brainstorm and that sort of thing. Have our books absolutely open and transparent, because the fact remains is that we're both in the kid business. And indeed, helping kids is as much the job of everybody, including the students, I might add. So are you. You're in the kid business too. But the reality is that because we solve problems, because we collaborate, having that partnership with our bargaining groups is extraordinarily important, and it's one of the reasons why we have 10 straight balanced budgets, and another reason why, indeed, there's a way of doing things, and we think the San Juan way of collaboration and cooperation and listening is the way to do it.
As students, we see acts of hate speech and bias on our campus. As a board member, what would you do to address these concerns?
I'd like to tell you a story about that. One of the things that I did, I told you a little while ago that I did a good deal of work in classrooms as a parent volunteer. In the school where I was, and it was there was a program called Second Step. It was one of the district's anti-violence programs, that sort of thing. And our job was to talk about bullying and that sort of thing. And on the last day of that experience of the Second Step thing, the students had to make posters that they wanted to advocate to the rest of their students. And here were these two young ladies that built their poster, and it says, "There are no bystanders in bullying, no innocent bystanders in bullying." And I thought, first of all, how did these third graders know these words? And I was really impressed and feeling pretty good as a teacher at that point. But the whole notion is that part of bullying is that far too often I see students running to watch the fight rather than running to stop the fight. We need to change the culture so that it's everybody's responsibility, not something that's getting into a fight and watching it as a cool thing. It's not. The reality is we need to take care of each other, and bullying each other, either cyberbullying or physical bullying, is not the way we do things in San Juan, and we will stand up to that sort of thing, and it'll be part of our instruction too.
How have you seen the district listen to the voice of students? And what other ideas do you have for how student voice can be expanded?
One of the things that I think will be part of Superintendent Kern's legacy is the superintendent student advisory panels and that sort of thing. We want, and having a way for students to advocate for themselves, to advocate for their voice, to talk about the things that are important to them, like dress codes and things like that, and that sort of thing. I believe in every school, not just high school, not just middle school, but every one of our 64 schools, we ought to have a student voice advocacy group of kids, because it provides opportunities for leadership, it provides opportunities to talk about what you really care about, and it's a way for you to take action from the point of view of the students. And Superintendent Kern's legacy will be that we really do believe that students have something to say, ought to be part of the solutions, and ought to be part of the culture of caring that we have in this school district.
Thank you, Candidate McKibbin. Do you have a closing statement you would like to share?
What I believe schools are about is the whole notion of making students citizens of the world and making them the kinds of people that you want to say hi to as you pass and that sort of thing. We want to expand their intellect based upon learning foundational skills, and the first things we want to have ways to make students ready for school. We want to have ways for those kids that get behind to have opportunities through credit recovery, through different kinds of things in order to catch up. For example, in credit recovery, you can just meet one standard. You don't have to do the whole course, and you can move through faster as a result of those sort of things. We need to expand those things. The most important thing that we do as educators is help students find their purpose and their passion. We need to really work on that issue, because the most amazing thing is that I don't believe we use the talent we have in students as much, and I certainly don't believe we use the talent of their parents. Parents have a lot of backstories and that sort of thing that would be fascinating to students and so forth. So we ought to indeed to invite parents to do more in schools. We believe that our job is to help students find their God-given talents, and that's what school is about. And that's why hands-on, that's why experiential learning, that's why practice-based things are really important to our schools. I've lived in this area for nearly 40 years. I've been an educator for more than 40 years. I believe that I understand the challenges that face schools, and I've lived in schools, I've been there, I've raised my child to be a pretty amazing kid. And I think I understand those issues, and I ask for your vote so that I can be part of the solutions.
Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to go and watch every candidate's video, and please go out and vote.